Even India get upset by Sri Lankan Pakistan relationship, but do you think India will help Tamils due to the regional security reasons?
Yes, I think they will, because they're quietly waking up to the reality that we've got a failed state in the Sinhala South. And nobody wants to get associated with the failed state. And India will quietly distance itself from the Sinhala South and have another look at helping the Tamil people. You see, their great fear is that a separate Tamil state in Sri Lanka will generate similar separatist tendencies in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kashmir, etc. My answer to that is that the Tamil people in Sri Lanka have been treated worse than any minority group in India by their government. No minority group in India has been treated in the way that the Tamils of Sri Lanka have been treated by the Sinhala government. So I don't think that India has any cause to fear by enabling the settlement of a conflict on its doorstep. Now, in terms of your other question about EU and the US and Canada, stupidity of banning the Tamil Tigers. You know, here is a negotiating table, two people on either side. You ban one side, what on earth do you want this side to talk to an empty chair? I mean, if the Tamil Tigers are so evil, why on earth does not Mr. Rajapaksa ban them in his own country? So the Tigers get VIP travel through Katunaka, which not even we get. But Rajapaksa, or earlier to him, Mr. Kadragama, goes round persuading countries such as the EU, US, Europe, Canada and Australia to ban the Tamil Tigers. They are opting out of the peace process. I addressed the EU parliamentarians in Europe before the ban, and I said, if you go down this track, you're going to opt out of the peace process. Now, having banned the Tigers, then they say, talk peace. Where? Why? You're banned. And of these countries, you haven't mentioned one, which is a very fine country. I've just been from it, and that is New Zealand. And I really want to plug the role of New Zealand in helping another fine country, which is Norway, to settle this conflict. You say, oh, they've got vested interests. So what? What if Norway is out for our fishing rights? It's better than killing people.
Look at the U.S. statements these days. They sounds like that the Tamils or Tamil Tigers are terrorists. And there is no exception, even though they banned, but even their statements are calling it 100% terrorists. And they are part of co-chairs. And Japan is kind of friend to them, Asian friend. And Japan is also hinting that they may ban the Tigers if they don't come to talk. And EU is a co-chairs. And except Norway, everyone else is almost like banning the Tigers. Then how can they expect them to come to talk and listen them?
Come to talks and talk about what? They talked in Geneva in February. Geneva 1, as they call it. The undertakings by the Sinhala government on Geneva 1 are not implemented. Soon after the Geneva talks, in fact, before the Sri Lankan delegation came back, the Der Spiegel, or one of the German magazines, went and asked, they flew a representative out there to talk to Rajapaksa and say, I gather that the government has agreed to disarm the paramilitaries and Mr. Karuna. He said, who is Mr. Karuna? Now here is the president of Sri Lanka saying that he does not know who Karuna is. The whole world is talking about him. And the guy is either totally ignorant or a liar, one of the two. And this sort of thing is going to have repercussions on countries like the US and EU. One of the things that's going to happen, or has happened, and I told them that it would happen, as soon as EU and America and Canada and Australia ban the Tigers, they are going to give enormous support to the racists and the chauvinists in Colombo, the JVP and the Buddhist clergy, the JHU, to increase the demand that the Tamil Tigers be crushed. Something that they can't happen. It won't happen. It hasn't happened for 20 years.
I have read many of Indian analysts and Sri Lankan analysts, even some other analysts that says that Tamil Tigers knows the Tamil Eelam, the separate state, is not reality. Is it true?
Well, it depends upon where you are speaking. When I was speaking in Washington about 4 days ago, 5 days ago, I didn't use separate state Elam because that is, you might as well opt out of the conversation. Whatever you want to call it, you call it a separate state or separation of power, whatever it is, essentially, we want the Tamil areas removed from the clutches of the Sinhala administration in Colombo. We don't want to divide and destroy, but we want a reversal of the Colebrook-Cameron reforms of 1833, where the British unified that which was divided. You see, when the British walked in, for several hundred years, the North, Tamil North, the Kandyan Kingdom in the middle, and the Sinhala South, the Kotte Kingdom, were three separate kingdoms. And the British unified it after the 1818 Kandyan Revolt. So to centralize power in Colombo. Now we want to reverse that. It is essential because if you leave the Tamil areas in single hands, that Tamil area will never develop. So you can call it a separate state, federal state or whatever. In terms of a federal state, I have difficulty in accepting this. I know of no federal state in the world where there are two separate armies in one country. Either you disarm one army or you divide the country. Now, if you are talking in terms of the disarming of the LTT, India with the fourth largest army failed to do it. I can't imagine that Mr. Rajapaksa's unmotivated, poorly trained and illiterate soldiers can be a match. Are they trying to put themselves on equal footing to the fourth largest army in the world? I don't know. If India couldn't do it in 87, this bunch are not going to do it.
About peace talk again, if you are an advisor to LTT, what would you advise to the LTT about peace talk?
Oh, this peace talks, just to go and talk nonsense and come back. Because if you don't talk nonsense, the international community will say, oh, they're not going for peace talks. Just look at the agenda that they have put up for the peace talks. Most important thing is to remove the army and to give some regional, meaningful regional structure like the ISGA to the Tamils. Now, topic number one, democracy. The democracy a la Sri Lanka Jayawardena style. We are still under the 1978 Jayawardena constitution, which is described in one of my books, I think, called The Human Rights Violation or something. This is the dictator, even more powerful than de Gaulle. He can dismiss the cabinet, the Supreme Court judges are appointed by him. He can dismiss the Supreme Court judges, the whole judiciary, every appointment he can appoint or dismiss. And this is the man with those powers he's talking of. Point one, democracy. I think he's just joking. And but as I said, I'd advise the Tigers to go and talk nonsense. Perhaps they could send their B-grade team, not the A-grade team. A-grade team is Antar Balasingham and the fellows who know what they're talking about. Just send a couple of Podians and say, yeah, we are coming to talk. And do exactly what Chandrika Kumaratunga did. She sent the Bishop of Colombo and her architect and her town plan or something for the peace talks. And they say, yes, sir, we'll convey that to the master and let you know. So they can play the same game. So the only advantage of the peace talks, the danger is that Mr. Rajapaksa has his eye on the $4.5 billion, but these guys aren't fools. They are also a little smarter than Rajapaksa. They say peace talks with a view to forward progression of the peace process. It's not good progress.
So